Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network. This is the first in what we anticipate to be a monthly show here on New Bedford Cable Network, and to take a look at what's going on in the various departments throughout the city. Now, from the airport to the zoo, and for the 30 or so departments in between, there's always something going on that makes New Bedford the great city that it is. Today our guest is Ari Skye. He's the Chief Financial Officer for the City of New Bedford. And Ari, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Jim. Good to be here.
I think one of the things that we want to talk to Ari about is Ari's definitely a behind-the-scenes sort of guy in the role of Chief Financial Officer. Why don't you tell the folks, what is the Chief Financial Officer for the city?
So the Chief Financial Officer, the CFO, is a fairly new position for the city. I've been here about 3 years now. I'm the first one. The CFO is really the business manager for the city. The City Council and the Mayor created the position several years ago to oversee kind of the back office operations, our finance office, our treasurer's office, purchasing, the MIS or IT office, as well as the assessor's office. And but the larger picture is that the CFO is kind of responsible for enterprise management, from seeing that looking at what the city's general trajectory is, making strategic decisions, or recommending strategic decisions, and trying to keep the city in sustainable footing.
So this is one of those departments, if you will, for the city that we talk about where they're very obviously influential, but you don't see them. I mean, no. It's not as visual as Department of Infrastructure when you're seeing buildings being done or roads, but it's...
We're a very small shop. There are only 3 of us in our office. We oversee probably about, departments that have around 45, 50 people, but the office itself is only about 3 people.
The purpose of Ari's visit today at this time of the year here, as we're getting into spring, is to talk about the budget process for the city. Mayor John Mitchell, along with city departments and city councilors, are going over a funding plan for the upcoming fiscal year that begins on July 1st, and obviously Ari's very involved in that process. I guess the first question to ask is how and when does the budget process begin?
In a lot of ways, the budget process is a year-round process. When we're not preparing the budget, we're executing the budget, and by executing, I mean ensuring that departments spend within within the allocations provided to them, as well as looking at their overall performance. We have various performance metrics and so forth to make sure that goals are being attained and so forth. The formal budget process itself really starts, I'd say, in November, which is when the year-end information comes out from the departments, which we in turn provide to the City Council. The actual formal kickoff, which is an internal process, starts in January, and then the departments go through their process of putting together submissions and so forth over the course of February. There is a mid-year report that we release in late February, and then various formulation discussions, as well as an overview presentation to the City Council, which happens in March, and then the budget itself is released in mid-May.
How do you determine, I guess, one of the curious things that I have is you come up with a budget figure for the overall spending plan. Mm-hmm. How do you arrive at that figure?
It's really a needs-based budget. We have to look at 2 things. We have to look at what do departments need, as well, and then what do we have available. More often than not, we don't have enough. We will not have as much money as departments want or need. So you have to make decisions, and it's kind of a triage process. The city is limited in terms of its tax levy by Proposition 2.5, so there are constraints on that, and so we know what that cap looks like. And then the state comes out with their numbers, and those are the 2 largest pieces really of the revenue pie, is the state revenue and the local tax levy.
So you definitely have to wait for the state budget process to work
in late January
to get yours even started.
Yeah.
One thing too, I think that people might be confused about when they talk about the budget is that you've got a calendar year and you've got a fiscal year.
Right.
Totally different things.
Totally different things.
Talk to us about the differences between those.
So the City of New Bedford operates on a fiscal year, same as the state, which starts on July 1 and ends on June 30th. So the budget process is timed in such a way to have a budget adopted in time for the July 1 start date.
And of course, most people, as they are doing their budgets at home, they're completely opposite. They're doing the January to December, and taxes are due in April. So it's a completely different thing. As you go over the budget, the overall budget for the city, and you're getting your first look at it, how does the budget break down overall, I mean, what do you got for city departments versus school versus other things?
It's interesting. We have a chart that I guess we're going to show. Much of the budget is sort of baked ahead of time. There are aspects. Some of it is assessments, things like charter schools, as their numbers are given to us by the state, debt service, health insurance and life insurance, and pension, all of which are set ahead of time, and we just know what the schedule is going to be based on the costs. And then school operating, which there's a minimum level that's called net school spending, which is established by the state, which we have to comply with. You put all those together, it's about 73% of the budget. The remainder you call non-discretionary. It's public safety and non-public safety. Those split roughly half of the remainder. Public safety is about 3 agencies, EMS, police, and fire. They're about 14%, and then everything else, which is 28 departments, is the remaining 13%.
When you are, and I think that's a key point too, is that for many people they don't understand that when you look at the overall budget, the biggest thing is, oh, we got to cut, we got to cut, we got to cut. The reality is city officials, city departments, there's not a lot that you can play with, really.
Yeah, the last year was a very challenging year. We had a big increase in our pension assessment. We had a big increase in our charter assessments. Those are all things that we don't have control over, but which we have to meet. And health insurance is up a good amount too. And those all resulted in us having to really do a cut budget. We eliminated about 18, I believe, vacant positions. We froze positions. We reduced budgets across the board. The city council reduced further. And despite all that, we ended up with a pretty significant tax increase last year. This year looks a lot more sustainable, due in part to the situation of the state and the funding that we're getting from the state for this coming year, but also due to the fact that, frankly, the economy is doing a lot better. And the local we've seen more new growth, which is helping us, and we've seen increases in a lot of our excise taxes, hotel, motel, and hotel lodging tax, and motor vehicle excise tax, and things like that are really helping to buoy the general fund and make things a little better.
It's interesting because when we go to the department head meetings and what have you, the mayor always says we have to do more with less. It's a mantra that he's had since day one. But I mean, you touched upon just now those other things, those other revenues, tourism and hotel and lodging and businesses coming in are so important to the city's overall budget.
They're small pieces, but a few $100,000 makes a big difference. And $100,000 is 2 positions. It makes a big difference. And the city has historically underfunded a lot of its basic needs, maintenance, infrastructure, things like that. We have a capital program in place for the first time in the city's history, and we're in our 3rd year now, and that's starting to make a significant difference. But we also didn't have adequate vehicle replacement. We had fire engines that were old, 10-year-old ambulances, and so forth. And we've done a lot to improve that over time.
So when you talk about those things, and I've had more than one department head tell me, and on a personal note for you, is that they love the way you're looking for money to get some of these vehicles. You're looking at those next year, 2 years down. That's how you plan it?
Yeah. Our capital plan is a 5-year window. We also have a long-range financial plan as well, which is also a 5-year window. So it goes through FY20. And that 5-year window, it tries to incorporate what we can expect as far as labor costs, contract costs, as well as what we know is going to happen debt service and financing costs as a result of putting these things in place. The objective of the capital plan has been to try to utilize our retired debt, so retiring about $7 million a year is just going away, is being paid off, and use that as a basis for the new plan, so that you keep debt service relatively level. We're mostly successful at that. There are a couple of big projects that have been kind of outside the envelope on that, like the Hannigan School, and those will have an impact, but certainly the major maintenance aspects are all well below the retired debt number.
But the interesting thing is the problem is not just unique to New Bedford.
No,
many, especially big cities, mid-American cities, are facing the same issues as New Bedford is. So this isn't anything that's, I guess, just us.
No, it really isn't. And I think the key is really, putting in planning structures into place so you can actually plan ahead. If you can't do it this year, know what year you're going to do it, and try to account for those needs, because you can't just decide we're not going to bother replacing fire engines, or we're not going to bother replacing fleet vehicles, we're not going to bother maintaining City Hall, things like that. You can't, or repairing fire stations or whatever. You can't just decide not to do that.
Right.
So
the interesting thing too is that for people, they don't, over the course of the years, especially over the course of the last 5 years, there's less city employees working now than there were 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
Too. And people don't know that.
Yeah, no, I some of that is thanks to automation.
Yep.
We have a good financial system in place, and a few other things that have really helped in that as far as that goes. Some of it was just the impact of various cuts, but there are significantly fewer positions in place now than there were 15 years ago.
Last thing before we let Ari go, something I think that's very important that was implemented by the city not that long ago. The city city residents have an opportunity to look at the monies that the city spends.
Yeah.
Any day, anytime, online, the open checkbook program.
So we're really proud of this. This is something we rolled out in January. We had a lot of support from City Council, Councilor Martins especially, and the mayor was very engaged in it as well. And it's a system that a lot of localities have, but we finally have it, which allows us to, which allows anybody really to look online and see what departments are spending money on. And you can search by department, by fund, by vendor, whatever you want to do, and it'll show you the data for that, for that parameter. We have 2 quarters in. We just started putting it in for this year. So the third quarter, we just finished March. So pretty soon we'll have the third quarter in for an FY16, and we're just going to keep rolling it in forward every year. And it's a great tool. It's great transparency, and it really allows anyone to get a sense of how the city's spending their dollars.
I think it's interesting too to note as a department, and obviously here, I mean, I don't think any department just spends money for the sake of spending money. We've, as a city, I think we've really done a good job. Is why do you need to spend the money? What's it for? If you can make a case, you're going to be able to spend it because it benefits the city. Yeah, I think that's a perception that people don't have, but that's really the case. Yeah. Again, the open checkbook is online on the city's website.
Online, just go on the city's website and click the auditor's office, and you'll see it right there. One thing I would like to mention is that the budget process in general, those who watch kind of the process that unfolds, is a little different this year. Partnership is our operative word. We've worked very closely with the City Council to try to put together a budget that addresses everybody's collective priorities. We're very proud of how that's progressed. It's been very positive, and I think good all around. For the first time, I was able to provide the council with an overview of sort of an outlook of the budget before it came out, and we're going to be providing some more data with that. There have been meetings between councilors and the mayor, and it's been a much more interactive, collegial process, which I think has been very positive.
And I mean, as far as you anticipate, I mean, July 1st, that spending plan should be in place.
Oh, it'll be in, yeah. There'll be a budget adopted in well in time, I'm sure.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think
give you a chance?
Yeah.
All right. Ari Skye, the Chief Financial Officer for the city. We thank him for coming in to talk about this budget process, which is obviously hugely important. It's funny, I've always said that the budget affects everybody in the city, and it does, every department, and a lot of times people don't understand how it's implemented or how it works. So Ari, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to take a break and come back with the second half of our show in just a moment. Hello and welcome back to the program. Again, I'm Jim Marshall, the New Bedford Cable Network, and with me for the second half of the program today is Chris Gomes. He's the Veterans Agent, the Director, and Veterans Agent here in the city of New Bedford. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
This time of year, obviously, well, first every time of year is, every month is really a busy time of year for you guys.
Right.
But this time now, as you're coming up to the late spring and early summer, obviously with Memorial Day just around the corner, it's even busier for you guys. Tell us, though, to start the program, What are some of the responsibilities of the Veterans Agent and your department?
Well, for the Veteran Service Department, the Veteran Agent's responsible for a variety of operations. But basically, with my office, I try to be a one-stop shop for the veterans coming in. I want to help them with any issues that they have. So if they come in with a question, if I don't know it, I'll look it up and get back to them. But basically, anything they've got an issue with, I'm there to assist them. We can look up discharges if they've lost them. We can assist them applying in federal benefits, compensation, and pension from the VA. We assist with financial aid, which is a state-mandated program under Mass General Law, Chapter 115. We run a shuttle that goes to Providence that transports veterans to their medical appointments free of charge. That's provided by the city. So there's a variety of things that we can assist veterans and the widows of veterans as well.
One of the things that you've said in many of the meetings that I've been with you too is how the number of veterans seeking services in the city has increased year after year.
Yeah, it's definitely gone up. I know when the previous agent, as well as myself, started this, the number continually coming to our office was somewhere about 50. And right now we're closing in close about between 470 and almost 500 clients at some points. But right now we're somewhat low. We've had quite a few veterans find employment, which is great. Kind of shows a little bit of a rebound. And then some of the older veterans just kind of passing away. So it's kind of a trade-off. But we help out quite a few each month.
One other thing you mentioned to me too off camera was how, in a sense, your department and the services that are provided the city pays for, but you're reimbursed as
Right.
well. And I don't think people might understand that.
No, under the financial aid program, again under Mass General Law Chapter 115, the city has to provide financial aid services to veterans and the widows of veterans. And those services can be provided for veterans who are looking for work, they're unemployed, they're underemployed, and we can assist sometimes subsidizing their income. And a good majority of our clients are retired and on fixed incomes, Social Security, pensions, things like that, and we can subsidize that income along with assisting with their medical payments. So all that money that we're spending out each month has to be allocated and certified that we've spent that money out, and then it goes to the state. They look at it, make sure it's good to go, and a few months later, I would say 6 to 11 months later, the city's actually reimbursed 75% of what it spent out. So what we're spending each month goes to a great cause. The first time I first started the job, I saw a widow come in and she was, living off $800 a month in Social Security. I was at a complete loss of words of how she was able to do it. Mm-hmm. But we were able to assist her with some extra money, pay for her medical bills, and she broke down crying because she didn't know that those benefits were available to her.
Yeah, and that's probably not the only story that you get like that either. So.
No, there's tons of them. Helping a homeless veteran get off the street, helping pay for the first and last rent so that he actually has a permanent place to stay. The stories come in over and over again. And that's the money that the city provides to these veterans and widows really goes to a great cause, and the city gets back most of it at the end.
We're talking with Chris Gomes. He is the Director and Veterans Agent for Veterans Services here in the city of New Bedford. Talk to me a second about the job search for veterans. You see a lot, you read a lot about how veterans are coming back, especially now.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're very skilled, but the unemployment rate is still high for these guys and gals.
Yeah. Well, there's a few reasons for that. Some guys and ladies who are coming out of the service, didn't plan as well, so they're coming home and kind of going on the fly. Other veterans are well prepared; they've already got jobs lined up when they're coming home. But with my office, we have a real good working relationship with the Career Center in New Bedford and the vet rep that's down there. We kind of meet with these unemployed veterans, figure out what are their skills, what do they need to maybe brush up on, get them there, and then assist them in looking for employment and finding out what can they do, what can't they do. And sometimes we find that even though they want to work, they can't work. So we'll look at other options as well. But the state signed the Stolen Valor Act, which kind of helps these veterans, and it helps give some initiative to employers to hiring veterans, and where can you get a better worker as a veteran? They're trained, they take orders, they show up for on time, and they do what you tell them to do. It's
the skill set that these people have achieved by being in the military, whatever branch, is amazing.
Oh yeah, most people look at the military and they think of just deployed soldiers and going to war. The military is like its own, city, its own world. Carpenters, firefighters, police, doctors. All these people are in the military, and when they come out, they still have those same skills. Just because they carry the title of veteran, a lot of them come out with very high levels of education, including college.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the tech things now that are out there too. I mean, the technology that the military uses, again, in all the branches, amazing. And it's probably more sophisticated than what you see in the private sector.
It could be. A lot of advancements have come from the military. Even look at myself being an amputee with prosthetic care. A lot of the advanced prosthetics came out of the military because of what they had to kind of counteract due to war and stuff. So a lot of advancements come from the military in their contracts of trying to figure out how they can be the best military in the world. So that also assists in the private sector as well.
As we come up to the Memorial Day weekend, and again, late spring, early summer, the one thing I've seen in my years here in the city is that, first and foremost, the city really takes a lot of pride in Memorial Day and just honoring those who have served and served in the past and gone in the military.
Yeah, city is probably one of the best in the state as far as making sure veterans are recognized and honored, in particular on Veterans Day, Memorial Day. But most of the city councilors and the mayor and stuff, they go out of their way to thank a lot of the veterans as well. But on those days, the city goes all out. We make sure we've got a good parade. The mayor ensured that new faces got involved in planning the parade, including myself and the Veterans Advisory Board. And a few years ago, when we kind of started, taking over and planning and stuff like that, the paper actually called it the biggest parade they'd seen in New Bedford in 20 years. So it's headed in a great direction. And Memorial Day is the same thing. Starting this month, you'll start seeing a lot of flags start being placed at the cemeteries to honor the veterans who have passed away, as well as placing wreaths at various memorials throughout the city. The city has close to 90 various memorials throughout the city honoring veterans.
How important is it, as a veteran yourself, and you kind of wear two hats because you obviously represent the city on one hand, you are a veteran on the other hand. How important is it, though, to see not just New Bedford, but the community, the public, recognize the veterans for their services? How much does it mean to a veteran?
It means a lot. And really sometimes it could be something as simple as just, thank you. It doesn't have to go all out. For me, looking back at how the Vietnam vets were treated, coming home and being spit on and disrespected, for only doing their job and doing what they were told to do, to see that and to see what has happened now because of them, they took a stand and made sure that no other veterans were going to be treated like that when they came home. It does mean a lot, and I think it means just as much to them as it means to us, having that welcome home. Coming through an airport and being greeted by an applause and standing people is a feeling that probably not too many people really have the honor of receiving.
You mentioned your leg, your prosthetic leg, because of what you had to go through. Again, it still must mean a lot knowing that your sacrifice is appreciated.
Yes, yeah, no, for me and going back to the appreciation, a lot of veterans who served, we serve for various reasons other than just wanting to thank you when we come home. We did it, 9/11. We did it because we had situations that we just wanted to leave. But a good majority, just want to serve the country. That was what is in their brain. They didn't grow up wanting to be doctors or firefighters or police. They want to serve their country. They went off, did it, and they're coming home now. And sometimes they don't really ask for the applause, but it is well appreciated, the same as me. I look at losing my leg no differently than any other person who served and comes home, and in better condition than I was.
Although the thing that I've learned, having run Boston Marathon this year too, and meeting some of those who sustained injuries in the military, those men and women, you have more energy than some people, half your age and what have you. So you guys just keep going. You don't even think about it. It looks like.
No, and that's again the military mindset, the military training. You have a mission. You do everything you can to complete that mission, and you don't give yourself any excuses. And the guys who get injured, it's the same way. You take a trip down to what used to be Walter Reed, now Walter Reed Bethesda kind of got together. You won't see too many guys down there feeling bad for themselves. They continue to push. Some of them return to active duty and continue on in the military, and others retire, come home, and carry on in a different direction. But most of the veterans I know, whether staying in or getting out, they always continue a mission and they never feel bad for themselves.
So as we talk about Memorial Day weekend, the events start on Saturday with the event at Rural Cemetery in the Civil War section. You almost have it divvied up as to the different conflicts, different wars. Each day, each ceremony sort of is for a different war or conflict, whatever you want to call it.
Well, that just actually happens to be, just the way things have lined up.
Is it? Yeah.
The Civil War Roundtable was something that really started just a few years ago. We got them involved back in the city again through some of the works with the Veterans Advisory Board, and they started up the services at Rural Cemetery, and it really seemed to take off, and the community enjoys it.
So you've got that on Saturday, May 28th at 9 a.m. Sunday at 10:30 a.m. is at the Pine Grove Cemetery, a service I love, actually. It's very quiet, respectful. You've got the marble headstones and the flags blowing. It's a beautiful service, really.
It is. It is.
At noontime on Sunday, May 29th, you have the Vietnam Memorial, another emotional day, a moment with the readings of the names at that ceremony as well. Monday, Memorial Day itself, a very busy day.
Definitely.
You've got an event at Rural Cemetery, the Veterans section, at 8:15. At 9 o'clock, you're at Howland Square. At 9:20, I don't know if I can pronounce this right, the Encarnacion Square on Dartmouth Street. That's at 9:20. At 9:45, it's National Guard Square at Kempton and Route 6. 10 o'clock in the morning, St. Mary's Cemetery by American Post 1. Fisherman Memorial Service at 10 o'clock. Then at 11, of course, the parade forms. It steps off at 11:30 and goes down Parker Street.
Yes.
It ends at Klasky Common Park, where there will be a brief ceremony and the band goes by. And then at 1:30, the Korean War Memorial Service takes place at Klasky as well.
Yeah, at the top of Klasky Park. Yep.
So, and really, I mean, it's not as though I think you guys are expecting everybody to attend every event, but it'd be nice to see people visit something during that weekend.
Right. No, and that's the main objective of putting this out there, so people know the events that are going on. And not everyone can make it. I can't make every single one of them. You have to kind of pick and choose which ones, and kind of hopefully get to various organizations. But attend one if you've never been to one. It's really a sight to see, and I think you'll get a lot out of it.
The parade is always fantastic, just with the amount of people, the enthusiasm. I mean, New Bedford does parades right.
Yes. Yeah.
And like I said, personally, I love the Pine Grove event. I just think it's...
That is one of the more solemn, respectful ceremonies. In the location and how the cemetery is set up, it definitely plays to that memorial. And American Legion Post 1 does that ceremony real well.
For those who have questions, need to get in touch with you, want to tell the folks how to contact you.
Contact my office by phone, 508-991-6184. You can also go on the Veteran Services website, the New Bedford ma.gov/veterans. Has contact information as well as an online application to applying for financial aid.
And if you're interested in, obviously, the schedule for the Memorial Day events, that'll be on the city's website as well. I think it's already up there, as a matter of fact.
It may be up there. If not, it will be, and the city will be releasing it as well.
Chris, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this edition of the program. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again real soon.